Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So there's a bit of corruption in the European Union. At the very least, it looks like there's a bit of corruption. I was looking on stories, and this is way beyond the pond at this point, but still across the pond. I was looking up stories dealing with Russia and Theresa May. Theresa May using Russia as a crutch and saying what they were using the United States, trying to blame Russia for something. And I came across a story on the European Union. I used to watch the European Union also. I actually used to enjoy European Parliament. There's a weird appointment that took place. So think of it from the standpoint of you're at a job, and I know this is not a job, it's a government. And by the way, the European Parliament, it's think of it as a government on top of a government. It's not like states. Think of each country as a thing unto itself, but having this overriding body of the European Commission or the European Parliament, whatever you want to call it. I know that's not a great explanation of it, but that's essentially the idea of what it is and the way this works. And this creates laws that the other countries, for the most part, have to some degree follow, meaning they have to mend their laws to follow those laws. Kind of like states, but they're not states. They're entities of their own. And they can leave when they want to leave, but as you see what Brexit is taking place, there is hell to pay for that leaving. Well, in this particular case, Juncker, being head of that, you can call it over government, that commission, appoints his chief of staff twice, back to back, almost simultaneously. I'm saying almost. And what's wild about it, the position that he ended up at, he wouldn't have had to rank to get to that particular position had he not been promoted in the first place. Meaning it's, yeah, I'm going to promote this guy. Somebody resigns and he says, hey, the guy that I literally just sat here and promoted, I understand he's my chief of staff, but I'm going to put his name in the box to be chosen for this position. That seems a little shady. That seems a little shady, guys. He won the appointment, by the way. People were pissed off at that. They were very upset about that. They were very, very pissed off. This is the Express. Juncker on the brink. EU enemies unite as European Commission hangs in the balance. Hangs in the balance. I'm going to explain the story, and I'm going to show you what. Just explain the story, but I want to show you the response to these guys. They were pissed. They were pissed. They were extremely upset. Following his controversial unveiling at the end of February, MEPs, those are the representatives. Think of like congressmen. But those are the representatives who represent their particular country. You have multiple MEPs from the different countries. Following this controversial unveiling at the end of February, MEPs are already threatening to topple Jean-Claude Juncker's commission, with anger rising over the way the German lawyer was promoted twice in a matter of minutes in order that he could take over for the retiring Alexander Italiener. Speaking during a hasty convened debate at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, furious MEPs claim Mr. Selmayr, who united his appointment with the European Commission President Juncker, Chief of Staff, had led the commissioners by the nose. At a specially called debate in Strasbourg, they accused Mr. Cerner, who was Mr. Juncker's head of staff until this month, of intimidating EU commissioners and leading them by the nose to rubber stamp his appointment. He's trying to say they were being bullied to vote for this guy. He was being bullied to vote for this guy. That's what they're saying anyway. These guys are politicians. Critics pointed out that the meeting, Mr. Selmayr's director ranking would have been made him. Okay, I'm saying this poorly. Critics pointed out that prior to the meeting, Mr. Selmayr's director ranking would have made him ineligible for the Secretary General role, concluding that the rapid double promotion had been necessary in order for him to land the top job. He wasn't even eligible for the position. He promoted him twice in a matter of minutes in order to get him in that position. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? The other guy retired. Clearly, they knew the guy was retiring. I'm going to put you in this spot. Now that you're in this spot, you're eligible for that other spot. So I'm going to put your name for that other spot, even though I just put you into the spot. And yes, I understand you work with me as my chief of staff. Yes. Let's keep going. People don't like that. That's what I'm saying. They're looking at this as being corrupt. During the debate, Sophie, a senior Dutch Liberal MEP, and Ms. Verstadt, ALDE Group said, the commission will have to choose what is more important. The career of Mr. Selmayr, the credibility of the EU, because the appointment of Mr. Selmayr was a grave error and it must be corrected, and that is a precondition for our continued support for this commission. The currently promoted European Parliament's Brexit coordinator, Guy Verhofstadt, to tweet, if Juncker Commission is not careful, it would have the same fate as Mr. Santer Commission. This was per reference to the mass resignation of the previous European mission headed by Jacques Santer, which resigned en masse in 1999 amid allegations of corruption. The issue temporarily united Mr. Verhofstadt with the most unlikely ally in his criticism, former UKIP leader Nigel Farage, who, speaking about Selmayr's appointment, said, the lack of transparency and chicanery in this elevation brings shame on the EU. Another one. Appointment has raised eyebrows across Europe, with the government of Hungary and the Netherlands among voicing their concerns. This guy's threatening. Stop complaining, let's draw consequences. Here's a 5-foot plan on Selmayr. These guys are arming up. They're getting motivated. And Mr. Tivel lodged a complaint with the European Ombudsman, said after debate, at times when the public's trust in the EU is low, this is devastating. The fact that the Commission remains deaf to criticism shows how disconnected it is from reality. Meanwhile, German Green MEP Seven Giegold criticized not so much Mr. Selmayr himself, but rather what he called cloak and dagger operation of his appointment. He added, if this procedure complied with the rules, we have to change the rules. I'm gonna let you hear the speeches themselves. I'm slightly disconnected from this. It sounds weird. Yes, I'm interested in it because it's politics. I like the politics of it. I like the fact that these guys, it's politics, and it's slightly different than American politics. So it makes it that much more interesting to me. I don't have the same, it doesn't drill in me as much, if that makes sense, because I don't necessarily know the people in the same way I know the people here. When I have an idea in my head of Mitch McConnell, I don't like Mitch McConnell. I have an idea in my head of Donald Trump. Paul Ryan, I hate Paul Ryan's guts. I don't like the Christian thing at the same time of being a miserly asshole. It drills in me because I'm here, I'm present, I'm aware of this. This is something that is affecting me. It's in Europe, so it's not necessarily affecting me in the same way, but it's one of those things where I look at this with a slight fascination. So this is people flipping out over that appointment. The funny part is I look at this, and maybe I don't have that same in me, because this is a, corruption in America is different. That's all. Corruption in America is different and more rampant. This appointment, I agree with you, looks bad. It looks very, very bad. And I have to be honest, I'm surprised that you could have just appointed the guy in that way. It looks like there would be some kind of democratic process where you elect the people in the process. In fact, I suspect that the reason why, if support for the European Commission is low, it's probably because it's not as democratic of a process as I think the people want. Can you imagine being in a country and not having any say-so in what takes place in the country? Meaning they have no way to touch you from where you are. If you're a state in the United States, for all intents and purposes, the federal and the state government work together. They go hand in hand in many of these things. If anything ever happened to one of the states, all of the states will pitch in order to help that state. It doesn't occur to us that that state is something separate and distinct from us, even if it's one of those states where it's not necessarily an political affiliation. I don't particularly like Texas. I would be happy as a lark if Texas seceded from the Union. That said, if anything happened to Texas, it would not occur to me one iota to not be in support of helping Texas. It's part of this country. It's part of us. States are different. Countries are different. Countries are different. I don't know if you guys have that type of solidarity with the other countries. And even if you did, having the capacity to choose who's going to represent you and pick the leaders of those boards or the leaders of that particular commission, I would say go a long way to bring in trust. But what do I know? When do I know?
the fast-track appointment of Martin Selmayr to a €20,000 a month job done without any openness, without any transparency. In fact, his photograph was on the European Commission website before the meeting even took place. So well done on that score. Now, what you've done, I think, is to bring a bit more light onto the European Commission. I want the citizens to know that the European Commission is the government of Europe. It is unelectable. We can't vote for them, we can't remove them, and yet they have the sole right to make law. And people need to understand how their money is being spent. This is Juncker's favourite bureaucrat, a fanatic who is now the most powerful bureaucrat in the world, and all of it done without an open procedure. You've done the peoples of Europe a great service. It is the perfect stitch-up. It smacks of nepotism, unaccountable government, abuse of public funds. Thank God the UK is leaving.
Apologise to the House that my government hasn't actually come up with a definitive document, and this is a great shame because we voted nearly 2 years ago to leave this sclerotic union. However, any document that includes ECJ oversight and doesn't take back control of our fishing waters is unacceptable. And there's another reason as well, because any document that's been produced by Mrs Merkel's people, Mr Verhofstadt, the socialists and the communist opposite, will be totally unacceptable to the British people. So I suggest we vote.
Wait a minute. Oh. She said the communists sitting over there. Oh, that's awesome. I'm sorry. That was hilarious. Yeah, that was hilarious. I'm sorry. Let's keep going.
Vote on that, but do you know what? I might guess what the vote might be.
Mr. Oettinger, quite frankly, you've just made matters a lot worse. Coming here and taking MEPs for stupid, telling us that, you know, about the wonderful new clothes of the emperor and expecting us to believe that is a stupid strategy. And it just underlines the point that I want to make here today. Today's debate is not about staff policy. It is about the total lack of political judgment of this commission. And that also applies to the absence of Mr. Juncker, who likes to talk about his political commission. But politics also means political.
By the way, to make this situation worse, they were pissed off. Juncker didn't show up. So the person who he didn't show up, he didn't come to that meeting, the plenary session. He was away from the plenary session. So these guys are there. These guys are pissed. The person they're pissed at took a sick day or whatever he was doing. He wasn't there. And at this point, they were flipping the fuck out. They're flipping out. I didn't quite understand why they were flipping out originally. Now, yeah, they double appointed him, which looks bad and everything else. They don't like this guy. And not just not like this guy. He's... Part of the document was saying that... Well, you heard Nigel Farage make that joke about a his favorite bureaucrat. Most powerful bureaucrat. But the document gets into... Let me see, where is he? It's how people were seeing the guy. Right here. Dubbed the monster or Rasputin by his detractors, Mr. Selmayr is often regarded as a somewhat Machiavellian figure who hit the headlines last year after Tory aide Nick Timothy calls, I think he's trying to say, calls him to leak details of a meeting between Prime Minister Theresa May and the Commission Brexit negotiator Michael Barnier. He claims he subsequently denied. They don't like the guy. And this guy is going to be in charge of some level of Brexit. Yeah. Yeah. Double appointment. Juncker didn't show up. They gave this guy up for a debate. I guess the Brits are saying they were being strong-armed. That this particular guy was being strong-arming people for this particular position. He wasn't supposed to be in a position. He didn't even supposed to have the authority to be in that particular position. In order to get around that particular point, Juncker promoted him, then put his name up for another position, in which case they promptly gave him. I'm going to end it at that. This one wasn't going to be long. I thought this story was slightly funny, and when I saw the video of them flipping out, I kind of enjoyed it, so I'm going to show the story. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks everyone.